October the 7th, 1981, Red Square, Moscow. The Soviet Union at the height of its power. 64 years after the great socialist October Revolution, Moscow has become the center of world communism and the second superpower next to the United States. In 1991, tanks are once again rolling through the streets of Moscow, but this time they're aimed at the Russian parliament. The old-style communist faction of the party wants to put an end to Gorbachev's reform policies. But the people of Moscow fight back. Boris Yeltsin, the first president of the Russian Federation to have been elected in free elections, is standing on an armored tank appealing to the people that they resist the tanks of the putschists. The putsch fails. And with it, the greatest political and social experiment of the 20th century. Yeltsin offers hope for a new post-Gorbachev policy after the demise of the empire. Does the end of the Soviet Union also mean the end of the communist idea, an idea that has captured the imagination of people all over the world for decades? How can one explain the collapse of the communist system, the fall from world power to political nothingness?
Das System war nicht fähig, sich zu reformieren. Das ist der wirkliche Kern.
Der Grund lag in den überstürzten Experimenten durch Gorbatschow. Daran habe ich keinen Zweifel.
I think the notion of creating a perfect society by going counter to human nature is dead. Because the basic error of communism was that it simply did not understand human nature.
Das Sowjetsystem scheitert an seinem Menschenbild, das absurd ist, das auch einer der Modernisierung durch Industrie, Informationstechnologie überhaupt nicht gerecht werden konnte.
Auch die Bürokraten haben nicht mehr an das System geglaubt. Auch die Parteileute waren zunehmend zynisch, korrupt, routiniert und ohne moralische Energie.
President Reagan was in the right time, in the right place, and he found dead bear, and he told, I killed them.
Если у власти оказались те, которые не должны были оказаться на вершине. Те, которые ничего не имели никакого отношения не имели к коммунистической идее, к его воплощению, да.
Der Kommunismus war eine Ideologie der Befreiung und ein Herrschaftssystem der Unterdrückung.
The myth of the October Revolution. The storming of the Winter Palace, seat of government, on October the 25th, 1917, according to the Russian Gregorian calendar. Legend and reality. The famous film director, Sergei Eisenstein, staged the dramatic events with powerful images. In his film, October, the revolutionary masses, led by Lenin, stormed the palace. Their goal, to depose the corrupt government. But in reality, Lenin wasn't there. The famous film was propaganda. The truth looked entirely different.
Plötzlich hatten die Bolschewiki mit einem Aufstand, der von der Mehrheit der Bevölkerung gar nicht bemerkt wurde. Das war in der Nacht, da wurden da die Brücken und die Banken und alles in die Hände genommen und am nächsten Morgen hatten die Bolschewiki die Macht.
On the morning after the coup, the palace was besieged by curious bystanders. There was little damage, just a few broken windows.
Es gab keinen Kunstgegenstand in Winterpalais, der beschädigt oder zerstört war. Es war alles zerstört, nur im Weinkeller. Damit diese Rotgardisten nicht besaufen. Diese Weine 200 Jahre alt oder 100 Jahre alt, diese Cognac und, war alles kaputt. Schade.
This was done by several hundred members of the Red Guard and sailors under the command of Leon Trotsky, first evidence of his talents as a strategist.
Trotsky, der Urheber des Stadtstreiches, hat einmal gesagt, ein diszipliniertes und regierungstreues Regiment wäre ausreichend gewesen, um den bolschewistischen Stadtstreich zu vereiteln. Aber dieses Regiment war nicht vorhanden.
The big winner of the Bolshevist October Revolution is Lenin. His uncompromising will to power helped him prevail within his own party and then in Russia as a whole. Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov was born in 1870 in rural Simbirsk, the son of a school inspector. His mother, a nobleman's daughter, is an enlightened Democrat, and she passes these ideals on to her children. Vladimir displays talent and extraordinary intelligence as a pupil. When his brother Alexander is executed in 1887 for participating in a failed assassination attempt on the Tsar, Vladimir too chooses a revolutionary path. A few years later, he assumes the nom de guerre Lenin.
Вот, допустим, возьмите от Ленина до допустим, сказать, до Путина. Ведь все из рабочих, все из крестьян, все из трудовой интеллигенции, но главный Ленин из дворян. Вот он бывший и не бывший.
Die Einstellung Lenins zu russischen Autokratie unterschied sich kaum von der Einstellung des radikalen Flügels der russischen Intelligenz, der sogenannten revolutionären Intelligenz. Für die revolutionäre Intelligenz verkörperte das zarische Regime das Böse.
Tsar Nicholas II rules a country stretching from Warsaw to Vladivostok, an autocratic monarch who answers only to God and himself, his allies the nobility, who have divided the country up amongst themselves, a small but immensely wealthy upper class. Russia is an agrarian society. 80% of its 135 million inhabitants work in agriculture. Serfdom of peasants is abolished in 1861, making them free citizens, but they still don't own the land. Compared with peasants, there are only a few industrial workers, 3 million. Many peasants flee from rural poverty to the big cities. In the few factories in St. Petersburg, Moscow and Minsk, they toil for starvation wages, often 18 hours a day. The people live under the most inhumane conditions, deracinated, thrown together in mass housing. The Tsarist regime resists any attempts to democratize it. Political parties were outlawed until 1905, and their members persecuted, arrested and imprisoned. Thousands were incarcerated or banished.
Je rückständiger ein Land, desto größer die Wahrscheinlichkeit, dass es zu gewaltsamen Aktionen kommt, je stärker der staatliche, der polizeiliche, der militärische Druck in einer Gesellschaft, desto geringer die Chancen einer demokratischen Verwirklichung dessen, was die sozialistischen Bewegungen wollten.
Das war diese Vision von der Entstehung eines Gemeinwesens ohne Ausbeuter. Also eine vollkommen gleiche Gesellschaft, in der also nur die Werktätigen existieren und die Ausbeuter eben zu Menschen zweiten Grades degradiert werden.
The more pragmatic Western society transform Marxism into social democracy inside that. The Russian mentality want to implement all the things just like you read it in the book.
In November 1895, Lenin founds the Revolutionary League for the Liberation of the Working Class. Accused of political agitation, he's banished to Siberia in 1897. Here he marries the revolutionary Nadezhda Krupskaya. After his banishment, Lenin leaves Russia to go into exile. A brilliant theorist and born orator, Lenin becomes leader of the radical wing of the Russian Social Democrats. Because his wing manages to win a party assembly vote by a slim majority, he gives his faction the name Bolsheviki, which means majority holders. The democratic parliamentarian-oriented wing, which is actually larger, gets the name Mensheviki, or minority holders. The Bolsheviki uncompromisingly advocate the dictatorship of the proletariat.
Man geht davon aus, dass der Mensch gut sei. Anders als bei dem Konservatismus oder auch bei dem Liberalismus, und deswegen braucht er kein Checks and Balances, keine Kontrolle. Nicht wahr? Und das ist sozusagen ein Grundfehler der Kommunismus, auch bei Lenin. Und daher hat man die unkontrollierte Macht. Schon am Anfang, nicht wahr? Das ist im Bolschewismus drin.
Das sollte eine Partei von Berufsrevolutionären sein, eine streng disziplinierte, zentralisierte Partei, die die Rolle der Avantgarde, der Arbeiterklasse übernehmen sollte. Und diese Konzeption stellte in der Geschichte der marxistischen Bewegung eine ungeheure Zäsur dar, eine Revolution.
Die Grundprämisse, die Menschen wissen nicht, was gut für sie sei. Eine Elite, eine Wissenschaft muss herausfinden, objektiv, was gut für den Menschen sei. Subjektiv gilt nicht.
Summer 1914. The assassination of the heir to the Austrian throne brings the international tension to breaking point. Russia mobilizes its troops. Germany declares war. While living in exile, Lenin believes that the outbreak of the First World War is a historical necessity and signals the impending end of capitalism. The hardships of war intensify the economic and political tension in Russia. The masses protest against hunger, the war, the government, and the Tsar. Nicholas II is forced to abdicate after the February Revolution. A provisional government is formed, and all over the country, worker and soldier councils, the Soviets. The irreconcilable differences between the parliamentarian bourgeois government of Kerensky and the radical Soviets hinder finding solutions to urgent problems. While war is raging in most of Europe, Lenin, exiled in Zurich, formulates his radical program. He rejects a parliamentary republic and in his famous April Theses demands the elimination of the provisional government and the assumption of power by the Soviets. The reaction of Lenin's comrades in Russia to his theses is unenthusiastic.
Man war damals der Meinung, Lenin habe aufgrund seines langjährigen Exils die russische Wirklichkeit nicht richtig verstanden. Also er habe den Zugang zur russischen Wirklichkeit jetzt verloren. Denn das war die Zeit der Solidarisierung aller demokratisch-revolutionären Kräfte.
You have to remember, Lenin jumped in the revolution in the middle of this. He was not the person who really started this, initiated the revolution. At that time he lived in Switzerland, drank beer and discussed the German economy.
Lenin realizes that he must return to Russia to spearhead the movement. His goals are an immediate armistice and a major land reform. He seeks the support of the masses. The German imperial government offers Lenin and other exiled revolutionaries freedom of passage. The exiles travel across Germany in a sealed train carriage. Lenin's return to St. Petersburg is supposed to destabilize Germany's war enemy, Russia. Revolution in Russia, an opportunity for the German Supreme Military Command to successfully end the war on the Eastern Front.
Lenins griffige Parolen. Einerseits beendet sofort den imperialistischen Krieg. Und die andere Parole, raubt das Geraubte. Also er hat die Bauern dazu aufgerufen, die Gutsbesitzer eigenmächtig zu enteignen. Also diese Parolen hatten eine außerordentliche Wirkung.